Y'all know who I am. Let's get right down to this story. Here's a story that you're only going to hear about on Tyrone Bowman Live. I found this while doing research from a paper or a publication called CalMatters. And so CalMatters is the only nonprofit newsroom devoted solely to covering issues that affect all Californians. So let's talk about this story as to why California is paying reparations to Giovanna Buffington, who resides in Long Beach, California. And this is a picture of her taken July 17th of 2024. I'm about to tell you her story and the story of other women who were sterilized forcibly in California. So let's get down to this story. If you like this channel, kindly subscribe to it. Thank you. According to CalMatters, Jenna Buffington knew she had little time to become pregnant once she was released from prison at age 40. For over a year, she tried to have a baby. She didn't know pregnancy would be unlikely because of a procedure she had nearly a decade earlier. In 1998, while Buffington was incarcerated at Central California Women's Facility in Chowchilla, she underwent an, quote, an endometrial ablation, close quote, in order to treat what a prison doctor had told her was an abnormal pap smear. The procedure destroys the uterine lining and should not be done for people who have any desire for future childbearing, according to the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists. But Buffington was not told how the procedure would affect her fertility. This is so humanly low for someone to make the decision that I don't deserve to have children because I'm incarcerated, said Buffington, who's now 58 years old. I would have been a great mom. Buffington last month finally received recognition that the state robbed her of her reproductive freedom. Securing that acknowledgement came only after a long court battle to make her eligible for California's historic reparations program for people who were forcibly sterilized while in state prisons, state-run hospitals, and homes. Who has given the Department of Corrections the right to play God over somebody's body because they're locked up in prison? And then she had to come out and had to fight for the admittance of the wrong that was done to her. Because nobody wants to accept culpability. Nobody wants to admit wrong. Her case could have wide-ranging implications for other people who were sterilized by the state and whose applications for the 2021 reparations program were rejected by the California Victim Compensation Board on technicalities. No doubt they were all white. The board 4 times denied Buffington's applications for a $35,000 reparations payment. That's it? That's all the money they're willing to pay? Writing that ablations don't qualify as sterilizations under the law because the procedure was performed to treat her underlying medical condition and does not eliminate fertility. What condition? What condition? Why don't they tell this lady right here? What condition? What underlying condition, unnamed underlying condition, can they justify for making this woman and other women sterilized? That's almost like the Tuskegee experiment, when the black men were deliberately injected with syphilis. See, people don't like to deal with historical facts, because when you deal with historical facts and talk about the injustices that occurred for anybody, the elitists of society don't want to hear that. They want to hear what they want to hear, and they don't care. In another signal that the program hasn't lived up to its promise, Governor Gavin Newsom on September 30 signed a law that gives survivors who were previously denied until January 1st to file an appeal. The Compensation Board has an additional 15 months to consider those appeals and process applications. The program, which was slated to conclude last month, will now end in January 2026. Vote Governor Newsom out of office then. I don't care if he is a Democrat. Vote his behind out of office. Women have a powerful voting bloc in this world. Women get more done than men do. Women have more sense than men. I was raised by a strong, single, black mother who had 5 boys. And she raised every one of us with an iron fist. And she taught us everything that we needed to know in order to become men. So don't tell me that single women and women in general should be sterilized while they're in prison. These white-dominated racist men, white men, are always playing God with somebody's life until it happens to one of their children. Then they want to sue the whole world. The Compensation Board is a state agency that collects restitution and works to compensate victims of crime. It's overseen by 3 members: State Controller Malia Cohen, Contra Costa County District Attorney Diana Beckton, and a representative from Newsom's cabinet, Government Operations Secretary Amy Tong. The agency told CalMatters via an email that its executive officer, Linda Gledhill, is unable to give an interview regarding this particular matter as it is pending litigation. The email also noted that the agency was sending letters to all claimants who had documentation available and received denials informing them of their ability to request an additional review of their denial. Starting in the early 1900s, more than 20,000 people, disproportionately poor women, people of color, black women, and people with disabilities were involuntarily sterilized, were involuntarily against their will, sterilized in state-run homes and hospitals under California's eugenics laws. Those laws were repealed in 1979, but the practice continued. A 2014 state audit found that at least 794 people in state prisons underwent various medical procedures that could have resulted in sterilization between 2005 and 2013. That governor needs to be thrown out of office. He knew about it, and he didn't give a damn. The most recent wave of sterilizations were connected to James Henrick, a doctor who worked at Valley State Prison in Chowchilla. According to state prison medical records obtained by KQED, Henrick ordered at least 80 ablations between 2006 and 2012. He did not perform the procedure on Buffington. You know what gets me about a lot of these doctors who are in prison? They're nothing but criminals. That's why they work in prisons. They were either going to work in prison or go to prison. They committed heinous crimes that are covered up, so they let them work in state-run facilities. And there's nothing correctional about prisons. Let's get that straight. There's nothing but violence, mayhem, pandemonium, corruption, confusion, and everything else. In 2013, the Center for Investigative Reporting, which first reported the sterilizations, quoted him saying that the state wasn't paying doctors a significant amount of money for the sterilizations compared to what you save in welfare, paying for those unwanted children as they procreated more. What the hell kind of statement is that? See, this is why there's Tyrone Bowman Live. Because I deal with the hard-hitting core, underlying topics and subjects. There's no fluff over here. I could never work for CBN and all those other places. Never. Couldn't pay me to work for them because I'm too outspoken, too independent. The government agency that oversees prison health care, in a 2014 memo obtained by CalMatters through the California Public Records Act, acknowledged that ablations and dozens of other procedures had the potential for sterilization or diminished capacity for future conception. Those procedures, the memo stated, must go through a heightened level of review, effective immediately. It was sent to top prison healthcare officials just 3 months before the state concluded its audit on forced sterilization in California prisons. They knew we were coming, said Hannah Beth Jackson, the former state senator who requested the state audit. I think that memo was clearly in response to either what they knew was going on or what they needed to do in order to assure that they were covering their ears and their rear ends and make sure the doctors and providers understood that indeed consent was required in advance. If you have loved ones in prison, check on your family members. Bombard the place. Check on your people. Don't let your people be locked in prison and you forget about them. Rich people don't allow their children to be locked in prison and get them special privileges of every kind. While people of poverty and black people and brown people and Hispanics, they get inferior services in prison. And people from privileged households, they get that preferential treatment all the time. Fight for your family and make sure they're not taking advantage of them. California in 2021 passed a reparations law carried by Assemblymember Wendy Carrillo to acknowledge the wrongful sterilization of thousands of vulnerable women according to the legislation. Since then, more than 75% of applicants were denied reparations according to the Compensation Board. Among the applicants who volunteered their demographic information, the majority self-identified as Black or African American. The Compensation Board approved payments to just 118 applicants as of October 4. KQED and University of California, Berkeley's investigative reporting program previously spoke with 6 people who had ablations and whose applications were denied by the Compensation Board. At least 4 of the ablations were ordered by Henrik. This is a damn disgrace. Governor Newsom needs to be thrown out of office, period. I don't care if he is a Democrat. This went on under his watch. That means he sanctioned it. He covered it up. He lied. And he put one of his own people on the board to protect his interest. Carrillo, a Los Angeles Democrat, acknowledged the rejections and delays during the hearing in August. For all of the survivors and individuals that still have a pending case, know that you are heard, you are seen. The Compensation Board cares about what happens to you. That's a lie. At a state institution where you have been denied the opportunity to be a parent, to be a mother, that should have been your choice. The Compensation Board is doing everything it possibly can to ensure that you have an answer to your appeal. They shouldn't even be going through this. How would you like it if your daughter went through this, sirs? After the Compensation Board's 4th denial of Buffington's applications for reparations, her attorneys Wook Sun Hung and John Moore filed a petition in Alameda County Superior Court arguing that the board's decision was not based on the law or science. She is one of 4 survivors to sue the Compensation Board. Included in Buffington's petition was a declaration from Cynthia Chandler, an attorney who helped draft the law, who now works at Alameda County District Attorney Pamela Price. We collectively and deliberately chose not to define or limit the methods of sterilization under which survivors could qualify for compensation, as we appreciated that there are many different methods by which reproductive capacity can be destroyed. And we did not want to inadvertently exclude a qualifying class from recovery under the Compensation Board, wrote Chandler. This is sickening. Judge Michael Markman on January 25 ruled that the Compensation Board abused its discretion and interpreted the reparations law too narrowly. He found that an endometrial ablation meets the requirement for compensation because there was no evidence that Buffington gave her informed consent prior to undergoing the procedure. Additionally, Markman wrote that the online medical source the Compensation Board relied on to support its justification for Buffington's denial did not suggest that fertility is maintained after the procedure. He ordered the Compensation Board to reconsider Buffington's application without mistakes of law. Roughly 2 months later, the Compensation Board approved her application. The court determined that sterilization is ambiguous and is the permanent inability to reproduce. The compensation board wrote in its decision to release the money. The court sided with Jenna B. and determined that all procedures that result in sterilization are barred when there is lack of informed consent. Last week, 2 months after the Alameda court ruling in her favor, she received her payment. I like some justice was being done, that I was being seen, Buffington said. That was a terrible thing that happened to us and doesn't deserve to be overlooked. Advocates for the survivors commended the court decision and said it's a first step to opening the door for relief for others who were denied. The ruling indicates, or we need to, for wide sweeping justice that was not met, Chandler said. Today, Buffington works as a certified peer support specialist for people in recovery and an assistant director at Footprints Around the World 8, a nonprofit organization that serves homeless and low-income families in Los Angeles. She plans to put away the money she received in reparations for her retirement. Whew. You know, my heart goes out to all involved in this. This is a hard thing to read, and it's a hard thing to report, because there's so many injustices that go on in these prisons. When a person is adjudicated by law and they go to serve their prison time, the warden or superintendent or the supervisor, whatever you want to call themselves, don't have the right to punish them even further. They're already being punished. And this is the reason why reform advocacy is so important. So she's going to put the money away for her retirement. So this is one of the cases where an underprivileged person who doesn't have anything was prejudiced and treated like a number and then set hung. One of her attorneys. To me, it's significant that a government agency acknowledged their mistakes, but it's also sad that it took a court order to rectify their mistake. Chandler said she's glad that the court put a monkey wrench, close quote, in the compensation board's processes. They were hell-bent on denying this claim. I believe because they know they have failed an entire class of people. She said, I hope that this ruling provides some level of precedent to force the compensation board to be accountable. The compensation board has not said how it plans to apply the court order to other survivors who were wrongfully denied reparations. Without a new policy in place, advocates have expressed concern that survivors could continue to face barriers to receiving compensation, including time, money, and legal resources. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching. I'll be covering more stories like this in the coming weeks and months ahead. Never surrender, never quit.